Good afternoon, ladies and gents. This is Tsepo Mohapi with Life in Perspective once more. We have been talking in the previous week, and based on what we had discussed in the live session that I did with you guys on Saturday, there had been some discussions that were coming up based on the content that I was sharing, and a few people had requested that I must actually give an example on how to actually start a relationship in terms of the stages that I had mentioned. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna do a short video just to give you guys an idea of what is it that I would look out for if I were to, to get into a new relationship, and what is it that I would focus on, and what is it that I would deem as critical. So I will use an example to actually just paint it out for you so that it makes a bit more sense. So I'm hoping that the example that I'm going to give will probably at least empower you to be able to deal with some of the questions that you have in and around how to apply yourself to the stages that I've given. However, what I'm going to do is, because I've given you 4 stages that you need to follow, 4 steps you need to follow when you get into one, I am not going to do the first 2, because the first 2 have to do with self, and it's mainly self-love, self-value. That is something that you need to do on your own. And if we have to talk about self-love and self-value, I think a lot of videos that I've done historically as well in the past have covered much of that aspect of the discussion. And the part of self-understanding, which is the second one, that I have not covered much, but it's also important that one actually takes the time to do that. I don't really see anyone doing well in relating with other people without them loving and valuing themselves first, and secondly, understanding themselves. I don't see how any human being can interact with other human beings and excel in doing it if they have not taken the time to learn how to love themselves, to learn how to value themselves, and to learn how to understand themselves, or understanding themselves much better. The reason why I'm saying that is because even if you look at the different types of communicators, according to how even in literature, it has been split in terms of how people communicate. All of that require a certain element of self-value and self-love. If they teach you how to communicate as an assertive person, you cannot be assertive as a person unless you have learned to value and love yourself. It's very difficult for you to be able to do that. You cannot apply yourself holistically in a form of what we would call inclusive type of communication, where you involve other people to be part of. When you communicate and wait for a response, give a response, and if you do not understand yourself well, because there's going to be a lot of gray areas in how you then communicate with people. So this basically in general simply says that it is very difficult for a human being to be able to interact with other human beings if he has not built himself up to a level where he has self-love and he has self-value and he has understanding of self. Once you have done these successfully, so these first 2 stages are very critical for any human being to be able to actually get right. You need to master this side of yourself. You need to really master it. You need to actually have taken the time and have put yourself in a space where you value yourself enough, so that even when you communicate with people, you know where to draw the line, you know where the limits should be, you know what people should not be saying to you. You know how to communicate with people, because you know what makes you feel in a certain way when people say certain things, because you understand yourself better. And those dynamics are very critical, because that's what allows you to apply yourself and appropriate yourself when it comes to dealing with people and maintaining. And you will find that these type of things are the things that would also link to your quotients, which is what I was talking about, especially the social and the emotional quotient, which is what people will call emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has everything to do with you being able to love yourself enough and value yourself enough and understand yourself emotionally for you to be able to apply yourself and appropriate yourself in interaction with other people. And this is important because it's very critical. So these elements are actually interlinked and they're interconnected. And once you have an understanding of seeing how these actually linked with one another, you are able to actually use them much more effectively. So I'm not giving you these steps for the sake of just giving you them because I think I want to be a love guru or anything like that. I'm not even a specialist where love is concerned, or I'm not even a psychologist. I just read a lot, and I have an understanding of certain things that I believe are very useful when we use them appropriately. I've gone through a lot of courses where I've sat and heard people speak, and having to sit and look at all of that material and begin to find and see trends around how certain things connect with one another. I think for me, it was the greatest discovery, because it was then so exciting for me to sit there and realize all these things that I've been learning, there's actually some connectivity. They are interconnected, they are interrelated, and it's important for me to have seen that for myself, because then it helps me to be in a space where I'm able to see certain things that are systematic, that if you do them in a certain systematic way, you'll find if you sit with people and you begin to understand how is it that you are lasting this long in a relationship, how is it that you are doing this well in a relationship, you begin to understand that, oh, so there is some form of system even in the chaos. There is some form of structure even in the chaos, and you begin to take those lessons from one person to another, and you begin to see that there are similarities in how these things actually work. And those similarities is what I want to share with you today, because based on observation and what I've seen, and those similarities for me is what jumps out at me and what actually gives me the confidence to say, if you do actually do this, it will most probably work for you. And I believe this is the approach that I am taking. So I have been talking to you about the 4 stages. So the first 2 is what I believe any person should strive to develop on their everyday life. You need to self-love, you need to self-value, you need to self-discover, understand yourself better. And I'm telling you now, one of the biggest tragedy of our time is that people do not understand themselves well enough. And that's why they struggle to value themselves. They struggle to love themselves, because there are things about you as a person, once you begin to know them, you will fall in love with them. You will fall in love with yourself for those things that you have, and they will actually fuel you up to do good in life, because you know what to focus on, because you know where your strengths lies, you know where your weaknesses lie. And that, for me, is far more critical than anything else that you can attain outside self. And I believe that you as a person, everything that you are and everything that you can ever be in this universe has everything to do with what you have developed internally. So if you see people manifest things on the outside and they become successful, or they become great at certain things, or they become good at doing certain things, you must realize that that is a manifestation of an internal process that has been ongoing for a while. An internal process that has been ongoing for a while. Nothing just happens. People have to follow certain systems, have to do certain things consistently for them to achieve the same results all the time. You look at Tiger Woods and you look at his life and how what he did privately in terms of training, development, from when he was young and his father was mentoring him, you will realize that his success and his ability to be consistent, even the way he swings. I mean, Tiger Woods is one of those people that had the most unique swing, that has been regarded even in golf as one of the most accurate swings that any golfer has ever had. Now, for him to get to that point, for him to perfect that swing, for him to get to that level where he has perfected his swing to that point, it has everything to do with the build-up of what he was doing, where people can't see, where people can't observe, where people are not there to say, oh, wow, when he's training and doing stuff alone without anyone noticing. Those things that he consistently did is what culminated to him being able to excel in that space. So even with us having to excel with other people has everything to do with us excelling personally. You need to have developed systems internally and alone that allow you to achieve certain things, and you are able to do good for yourself. So let's start. Now, I want to then go into the 3rd stage, which is the talking, and the 4th stage, which is the mutual agreements. Now, those are very important. Now, why am I saying that? I am saying that because at the talking stage as a person, you need to realize that you then have to talk to a person based on mutual interest, or not mutual interest, on areas of interest. You have to talk to people based on your interests, which means those interests will come from the first 2 stages: the self-love, self-value, and the self-understanding. you will then have a specific liking of certain things, a specific liking of certain character traits, a certain liking of certain personality traits, a certain liking towards certain attributes that a human being can carry. That then plays a very critical role, because even when you start talking to a person, already you have primed yourself towards certain areas of interest. You might find sometimes that even as you talk to a person, you begin to pick up and spot other areas of interest that you might have not necessarily observed when you were alone. Because alone, in as much as you can sit and observe and evaluate yourself, you are also limited. That is why you can never know where your weaknesses lie as a person, because when you are alone, you are perfect. There's nothing wrong when you are alone. But when you are the other people, it's only then they will point out certain things that are not necessarily, which is why I was saying that when you get to the talking stage as a person, get to the talking stage on the basis of just friendship or just acquaintances or just getting to know each other, because it's going to help you be in a space where you are interacting with people that are willing to be honest with you, that are willing to talk to you, that are willing to tell you the truth about everything. So for me, when I interact with people at a talking stage, I interact, whether it's in business, in a romantic relationship, I interact based on areas of interest. And those areas of interest, they come from my own personal interactions with self. When I'm sitting alone and I'm interacting with myself, that's when those areas of interest will actually come up. My interests, my likings, my dislikes, and all of those things, they will come up out of that space. And it becomes important, because that then leads you in a conversation to a level where you can now have a mutual agreement. Once you have taken the time to learn, understand, interact, and know a person better, you know them well enough for you to then say, now when you get into a stage where you are agreeing to say, now we are getting into a relationship, or now we are getting into a partnership, or now we are getting into a space, what will then happen in that space is that you're going to deal with two main things. You are going to deal with common areas of interest. To say, if we have more common areas of interest, the likelihood of the relationship surviving is higher when you have more common areas of interest. Why is it important to have more common areas of interest? It's because you can share activities. You can share activities. And when you share activities and things you like, because there's a lot of commonality, it increases the strength of the bond between two people. It increases the strength of the bond between two people. Now, it's important to have those common areas, and it must be a majority of them. It has to be. It has to be a majority of common areas. If you share common areas, you are able to share a lot of activities together. You might find that you share common areas to a point where you might enjoy the same type of music. So when the one is listening to music, the other can just join in and sit. And they bond while they're sitting and listening to music, because they share common things. Or while they're watching a movie and they like the same type of movies, the same style of movies, they can share. I mean, the second, category to this is obviously areas of compromise, where you will have to compromise, and that too can also help when both parties, remember, it's common areas and it's compromise. So when the two can find things where they can compromise on together, that can also help, because it makes the other person feel good when you are able to compromise on their behalf where certain things are concerned. For an example, simple things like you go out on a date with a person, you try to order certain things and they tell you, no, this kind of meat we do not have, and this and that. And then, you then choose not to leave the restaurant because maybe it's a place that the other person chose and they really like it. And you say, look, we'll sit here, but we will work with whatever that there is. The whole point behind it is not necessarily the meal, but the whole point behind it is for us to spend time. And when you begin to value human interactions to that level where it is more valuable to be with that person than the actual activity itself. Even if it's a shared activity, even if it's a compromised activity, it is easier to compromise even when you value being with that person more than having to compromise the thing you have to compromise. And it makes life even sweeter, because you will get yourself into a space where, because I want to spend time with you, it doesn't really matter what. You will even get to a point where you say, we'll do whatever you want us to do. Let's go out and do whatever you want us to do. And you will actually enjoy it. Why? Because you enjoy being with that person more than the actual activity itself. I'm not saying people should not enjoy activities, but I'm saying that there comes a time where you might not necessarily enjoy the activities, but you should have a balance that allows you, not even a balance, you should have a situation that allows you to enjoy being with the person more than you enjoy the things that you do with that person. And it's important. At first, yes, you might probably enjoy the activities more, because that's what's actually creating the bond. But it needs to get to a point where the bond is so strong that you enjoy being with the person more than you enjoy the actual activity. And once you get to that point, I promise you, even at the talking stage, if you get to that point, I promise you, more than half the time, you are going to find yourself in a space where you are much more fulfilled being with that person. Even when you get to a level where you have to come up with mutual agreements to say, this is how we want our relationship to look like. It's easier because there is less to compromise. There is less to compromise. You cannot find yourself in a relationship where you have more than 50% of things to compromise in a relationship. If a relationship is weighing more on compromise than anything else, that is not a relationship. That is not a relationship. A relationship is meant to be fulfilling. A relationship is meant to make you content. A relationship is meant to make you happy. A relationship is meant to make you joyous. It's meant to complement and make you feel whole. It's supposed to do that. But it cannot do that if you are doing more compromise than you are doing the things that you enjoy common. There must be more commonality than there is compromise. And if that is absent, then we have a serious problem. Now, beyond that point, these are the most critical things. I spoke to you about the three different types of relationship. I said you've got the transactional, you've got the value-based, and you've got the sentimental. Now, in my view, if I were to do a pyramid, which means the one at the top is most important, the one at the bottom is least important. If I were to do a pyramid like that, by virtue of importance, what I will then put in my pyramid is I will put value at the top. To say I rather would prefer having value-based relationship more than I would have transactional or sentimental. The reason why I'm putting all three of them in the pyramid is because there are certain aspects of transactional that you need in any relationship. And there are certain aspects of sentimental that you also need in a relationship. The question is, how much of what do you need to put in? So you've got value, you've got sentimental, you've got transactional. How much of what do you need to put in? In my view, if I were to use me as an example, I would put value at the top. Why do I put value at the top? Because value attributes are those attributes that will not change over time. The likelihood is that they will get better over time. Unless something tragic or something drastic happens to a human being, their personality traits, their attributes, and things about them will not necessarily change because it takes long to change them. It takes long to actually even develop them. So if a person is an angry person, the likelihood of them developing or working out that anger in the system will take time. It's not an overnight thing. And if a person is loving, it took them time for them to get to a level where they were loving. They had to develop that. So every attribute that a person has to develop over a period of time. Every attribute a person has to discharge out of themselves has to be discharged over a period of time, because for you to get rid of that attribute, you need to adopt another one to expel the other one. So now that becomes important, because what it means then is that if we focus more on running after value, the likelihood is we are going to get things that are medium to long term from people. And then if we go transactional can be medium to short term, because transactional attributes can change if the conditions of the transactions also change. Sentimental, those ones are naturally bound. They are not even in our control. Sentimental one are emotions. They are physical attributes. Those things that are about a person that can change at any point in time. A person can go into depression and change weight, either lose weight or gain weight. A person can get sick of a chronic illness and their body immediately changes. Their facial features will change. There's a lot of things that can happen in this sentimental stage, where in the sentimental type of relationship, where a lot of things can just change because of the circumstances having changed. So now let's start with value. I've already explained. So for me, what it means then is I would put value at the top, and I would prefer value to be at least 80%. 80%. I would expect that to be at least around 80%. So I base a relationship with a person on 80% of their attributes, and I'll explain them just now. And then also, I would rather have 10% transactional and 10% sentimental, so that I get to 100%. So for me, it's 80% value, 10% transactional, 10% sentimental. So why am I saying that? Now, I will explain now. So if I look at value, I look at things like belief system, the basis of your faith as a person. What is it that you believe in? What is the cornerstone of? Because remember, every value that a person has is influenced by their belief system. So I would look at that, because for me, a belief system is what I call a standard of life. Every person, their standard of life is based on their belief system. So you can tell the belief system of a person based on the standard of their lives, the standards they put for themselves in their lives. You can just look at that, and already it will give you an idea what belief system do they actually have. If it's a standard of life that is void of moral restraint, if it's a standard of life that is void of other restraints that are important to the existence of a human being, those restraints for me is what then determines whether the person has a belief system that I can subscribe to, that I can align to, that I can actually couple myself with. And this is important for me, because I believe that if your standard of life and my standard of life are mismatched, you and I will always have conflict. We will always have to argue about certain things, the decisions that you make in life. We are always going to argue about why you decide, why you think the way you do, why you do things the way that you do. But it will be that way simply because of your belief system. Your belief system is very, very critical, because it determines the standard of your life, the kind of principles you live by, the kind of rules you put in place for yourself. And for me, this is important. The second one in the value still is attributes. And attributes, by attributes, I mean personality traits, attributes as in values, not values, but attributes as in the kind of things that you carry as a person in terms of your value attributes. And I would talk things like, maybe, let's say, kindness, being peaceful, being humble, those kind of things. That's what I mean by attributes. Virtues, basically, virtues. Now, listen to what I'm saying. I am saying attributes expressed towards others. Attributes expressed towards others, which means I don't have to look at attributes expressed to me. Because at the time when I start a relationship with a person, and they are able to show me good, it is easy to pretend to one or two people or three people. It is not easy to pretend to everyone. And that is why for me it's important to then make sure that those value attributes are attributes that I see the person consistently expressing them to other people. Now, for me, what I would look for in a person is things like kindness. I would look for kindness. How kind are you towards other people? How meek are you as a person? Some people say meekness is humility or humbleness. It's really not. For me, meekness is more about knowing when to act and when not to act when it comes to power. When a person is given power, their ability to exercise power appropriately, for me, is very, very important. For an example, you are an older sibling. You have the ability to deal with a younger sibling when they are wrong. And how you appropriate yourself to a situation where something has happened, where you have been offended or they've done something to you. How do you respond to that? Whether you respond by aggression, you respond by mercy, you respond by showing compassion towards the other person. That for me is very important. It's like, even if you are a boss at work, how you treat your subordinates. For me, that's what I term as meekness. Meekness is the ability to be good to people even when you are more powerful than them. For me, very, very important. Very, very, I look for that in a human being. I look for that. And if I can't find it, I have serious problems. Because what it means is that the day you have power more than me at any aspect of our lives in a relationship, the day you have power over me, the chances is you are going to show me flames. But if you are able to appropriate yourself even when you have power, and you are able to show love, you are able to show meekness, you are able, not meekness, you are able to show compassion. For me, that is very important. Very, very important. So that's what I look for. I look for kindness. How kind are you towards people who are less fortunate than you? How kind are you towards people that are strangers? How kind are you towards other people? That for me is important. And also meekness, like I've explained. And love. Not love towards me, because if you claim to love me, yes, you will show me love. Even if you are pretending, you will force yourself to do things that suggest that you love me. But how you show love to other people is not something you can pretend. So I look for that to say, how much love do you show to other people? How much love do you show to other people? And also compassion. How much compassion do you show to other people? Do you show compassion? When they have done something wrong, or if there's two people arguing about a situation that you need to intervene in and come up with a solution, how much compassion do you show? When people are struggling, they're going through difficulty, do you say, no, you are poor because you are lazy? Or how much compassion do you show to other people? Because everyone has their own different circumstances and what they go through in life. Because if you can show compassion in a larger population of people you interact with, the likelihood of you showing compassion to me in a genuine form when we are together is high. And for me, those are critical. Yes, to some people, they might look at other things. They might look at other attributes. But for me, this is what I look at. People who are compassionate find it easy to forgive. People who are compassionate find it easy to understand and sympathize, put themselves in the other person's shoe and be able to look at situations differently. So this is why for me, these four things, kindness, meekness, love, compassion, for me, they are the most critical on any human being. On any human being. If I were to interact, even for my friends, people I call friends, I look for some of these things. Even worse, when I am getting into a relationship, I look even deeper where these things are concerned, because I need that to be really, really genuine. I need it to be genuine. Now, you need to also understand that part of the reason why you have to look at these things from a human being is because you must also check where a human being compliments you. Because when you complement each other as a potential couple, you are able to actually do much better, because you are doing what we are calling let me put it this way: where I lack, you are strong. Where you lack, I am strong. That's what it means to complement each other. It doesn't mean we have the same thing. Though it's also important to have the same thing, which is the second part of reinforcing, where if we are compassionate and we are both compassionate, whenever we make a decision to be compassionate, it's a mutual decision. No one feels otherwise. And we are able to actually do that very well without anyone saying, I don't like this thing of you of doing one thing. Yes, it's also good to have some contrast in terms of regulating how certain things happen in a relationship. But it's also just as equally important to also reinforce. Not just compliment, but reinforce, which means having what the other person also has. And that actually helps as well. So that balance for me needs to be a 50-50 sort of a balance, whereby I have just as much complimentary as I have reinforcing stuff. And for me, that helps, because it helps me regulate where I'm overdoing things. Because sometimes when people know they have a strong attribute, they can sometimes overdo stuff. And I am being helped when I have someone who has the contrast, because then they can help me look at it and be careful in terms of regulating so that I don't overdo things. Now, the reason why I am then saying I'm done with the value part, the reason why I am then saying it's important to also have the transactional part. The transactional part for me is what I call the usefulness of a person. The usefulness of a person. Usefulness in terms of what? In terms of skills. This is where people talk compatibility. When they talk compatibility, it's at these two last levels that I'm going to talk about, where we are compatible. Where value is concerned, it must be complementary, it must be reinforcing. Complementary, reinforcing at the value level. But at these levels of transactional and sentimental, it's all about compatibility. It's all about compatibility. Now, compatibility in transactional would talk to the usefulness in terms of skills. It is good to be in a partnership with a person that is useful skill-wise. I think one of the reasons why when we read the Bible, you will hear the reason why God gave Adam Eve was because he said, I want to give you a helpmate, a suitable helper. You need someone who's going to actually be compatible with your skills as a person, because if they are incompatible with your skills, they can't help you because their skills are mismatched with yours. They can't use their skills to help you because it's mismatched. And a lot of times we don't actually look at that, and that's actually a bit of a challenge. And also the usefulness in terms of talents, talents that are actually helpful. As a couple, you want to be in a space where we have talents, gifts, and talents that are so compatible with one another that when we work as a unit, you cover gaps that I can cover. I cover some things that you can cover. It's like we are a complete thing, because what I have you don't have, what you have I don't have, and it becomes very important, because that level of compatibility means that we are able to come out together as a unit and as a force to be reckoned with, because we carry attributes that actually complement one another to a level where if you look at us as a couple, we are a force to be reckoned with. The level of compatibility is just amazing. It's on another level, which means these people are so fitting with each other. They are such a match in terms of attributes, transactional attributes. They are such a match in terms of usefulness. Maybe I am strong in business, but I'm not good in handling money. And I couple myself in a relationship with a person that's good with money, that's going to help. Now you imagine being in a marriage like that, where the other one is helping the other here. And that in itself, at the transactional level, helps you to value the other person to a level where you know that life will not be the same without them. Life will not be the same without them. Not this low grade transaction where I take, you give, no, I'm talking serious stuff here. I'm talking at the level of usefulness. A level of usefulness, not we are entering into a transactional relationship. What is it? What is there for me to gain? What is there for you to gain? That's low level stuff. Those are things we shouldn't even be considering. Those are things we shouldn't actually even be discussing, because they are not important. What is important and what is more critical is you having that understanding to say, I can be useful to my partner by developing skills, which is why it's important for you while you are alone and single. Develop skills. Develop your talents, discover your talents and cultivate them, so that when you meet a mate, you can actually even yourself tell, I can be useful in this man's life in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 area, or I can be useful in the person's in this woman's life in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 area. It's important to develop those skills, so that even when you meet a person, you can already tell. Have you ever met a person, even at the business level, where when you meet them, it's like it's a match made in heaven business-wise, because they have what you don't have and you have what they don't have. It just clicks just like that. Transactionally, that is a perfect match. You are compatible. And this becomes very important. So you can do the same, where even your careers are such that you are developing. I'm not saying you must both be geologists, both be engineers, or both be accountants, or both be doctors. No, I am saying you must be in fields of career that allow you to complement one another, to actually be a match, to be compatible with each other. And that's important. The last one is sentimental. Sentimental has to do with feelings and emotions. This one is short-lived. It's really, really short-lived, because it's controlled by circumstances. And when those, and I've already mentioned earlier that these can change. Some can be changed by drastic events. Some can be changed gradually over a sequence of events. But they change. How a person looks when they're in their 20s will change when they're in their 40s. It doesn't matter whether they go to gym or not and they do this. There are things that will change about them. Even their beauty will be altered to some degree. Yes, some people can look better as time goes, but some can deteriorate. Whatever the case might be, all I'm saying is that is subject to change. Even how you feel about a person. Even for people who are married, you could have been married to a person for the past 10 years. You will know. I know this for a fact, that how you feel about a person on the first year of the marriage is not going to be the same 5 years down the line. Something would have changed, either for the better or for the worse. Whatever the case might be, it will change. So sentimental things that put people together can change. And this is for me, is the one that you should put the least effort onto. The least effort onto, because many a times this actually changes. You look at physical attributes. This woman used to be curvaceous. She used to be thick. Or she used to be nice and slender and petite. or she used to be whatever that is it that made you tick at that point in time. A few years down the line, that might change. And when that changes, what will be the case? Yes, as a man, you used to have muscles, you were gymming, you were doing this. Now you are getting old, you are developing a big tummy, you are changing shape. You wouldn't want to be in a situation where you get dumped because now you have a big belly. You don't want to be in a situation where you get dumped because you've gained weight or lost weight. You don't want to be in a situation like that, because that is a very shallow decision. That is a very shallow decision, to decide to leave a person because of how their outward appearance look like. There are more things to be in a relationship with a person for than the physical stuff. And this for me is important. So yes, physical attributes, yes. I wouldn't necessarily obviously just date any person. I would want them to be presentable. I would want them to look good. I want to feel in a certain way when I'm around them. But that is not the most important thing. It's not the most critical thing. It is not the most, it will not change the course of life or anything that happens. Those things, it's like how you feel about a person today. And people tend to elevate feelings anymore. No, I don't feel anything for them. Yes, it's okay. You don't feel anything for them. That's fine. Not to. And that is why I emphasize the talking stage. Because at the talking stage, that's where you can't know if you have feelings for a person or not by just looking at them. You have to engage them. Even if you think you're crushing on them, engage them first. You will be shocked. You will crush, and when they open their mouth, crush goes away. You need to have a conversation with the person. Conversate up to a certain point. Then you will be able to reconcile with your feelings and emotions to say, how do I feel about this person? And some of you, I tell you, the people you are not even looking at are most likely some of the most compatible people you can ever come across. But you will only know if you allow the talking stage to happen. Talk to people. Interact with people. Conversate with people. Because the sentimental is what we see before everything else. It's what we see. Even the transactional, we might see a bit of it, but we get to learn more of it when we interact with people. But the value one, you really have to conversate with a person to be able to see the value attributes from a person. You will really have to have a conversation. It doesn't just happen. You will really have to have the conversation. So it's important for us to realize that, yes, when you're just meeting a person, it's first sentimental. It's emotion, hot flashes, whatever. Ooh, handsome. Ooh, beautiful. Ooh, hot, sexy. This and that. But ultimately, it will boil down to, when you now get to know a person, there must be more than just that. Though the sentimental can attract you towards a person, but you need to find more than sentimental. Though transactional can attract you towards a person, but you need to find more than transactional. And value can only be discovered when people actually talk. The talking stage, very, very, very critical. Stop dating in the first month you meet a person, or the first 2 months you meet a person. Talk. Tell that person, I want to get to know you. We are not dating. I want to get to know you. You are doing yourself a disfavor falling for people before you actually study them and understand them by talking and conversating with them. You will realize a lot from a person. You will find out some of the things that are lies as you are talking to them. Because even if people can lie, I'm telling you, they can't hide it for long. Give yourself time. There is no reason to rush. Think about it this way. Some people have been in breakups for the past 15 years. You've been dating, breaking up. Now imagine if you had allowed yourself to just be in a talking stage for 6 months. Just 6 months. Or less. Depends how quickly you can get to learn a person, and depends how good you are at judging character. Some people are not good judges of character. You will be in a relationship with a person and not judge character well, and you get a shock of your life as the relationship goes. Get into a talking stage so that you are able to do better for yourself. So that's how I hope this example actually helps you guys, because that's how I would then actually do it. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Be blessed.